All right, just after 5:30, and it's time to bring in Oregon State coach Mike Riley. He joins us on the Guild Mortgage Mobile Hotline. His weekly visit, obviously, every Thursday. Moving it up a couple days because of Thanksgiving. Coach, nice to talk to you. How are you?
Happy Thanksgiving. Good to talk to you guys.
What are the plans for Thanksgiving?
Well, practice. and then,
All right.
That's festive.
Yeah. And then, but we're going to have, after practice, a nice Raul Vera, our great chef, is going to have a nice Thanksgiving dinner for our team and families up in the stadium. And the everybody will still have a little freedom to go home to their own families, or some of the kids can probably see some of their family if they're in town.
It's always good, like when you had to practice on Thanksgiving or Christmas, and you start a rumor that you're going to cancel practice, and then you gather everyone up at the beginning. You're like, guys, I have an announcement, and then you tell them you're cutting like 10 minutes off of practice.
Yeah.
So it's always just a kind of good little feel-good, kind of stick it in your ribs, now let's go practice.
I might use that one, Sue.
Yeah,
if you don't mind, I might borrow it.
Yeah, just kind of let the rumor leak out there that you're considering calling practice. Then right after stretch.
Now, why would you do that?
You bring everyone in. You're like, guys, and everyone's like, oh, my gosh, we're canceling practice. You're like, hey, in the spirit of the holidays, 10 minutes off.
That doesn't sound like Mike Riley. Hey, so, Coach, this is a little bit different this year because you are one of the heavyweights. I mean, you're 15th in the BCS. But I wanted to ask you, you've knocked off some heavyweights there in Reeser over the years. Can you look back to those USC teams that were number one that you beat? Is beating this incarnation of Oregon, is it akin to knocking off those clubs? Or in some ways, maybe based on how different they are and what Oregon does, is it harder to upset Oregon than pull those off back in the day?
Well, I think the common thread that you just brought up there is they're both real good and both very different. So, but yes, I think it would be like that. This team, Oregon, has been ranked they were in top 5, moved up to the top 2, for a long time. A really good football team, and they've been a good team for years. But this team was really doing well, and it's football, so they had a big tough game last week and lost, like a lot of the best teams in the country have lost. Alabama, Kansas State. So, but a game like that, yes, it would be similar to beating somebody like when we beat SC.
So we talked to you last week, and you said that when you're preparing for an opponent, the common film that you like to watch, SC and Stanford, maybe you guys lie somewhere in between those things. And so you look at what Stanford did defensively, what USC did offensively against them.
Yeah.
Maybe some optimism for Beaver Nation.
Well, I think you have to use everything you can, and then try to not reinvent the wheel, but try to apply it to the principles that you already teach, because you're not going to reinvent the wheel at this point and go play well. Your players have to have principles that are the foundation for what they do, and then you can tweak those principles into what the Ducks do, or into what another spread team, Arizona, would do, or Washington State. They're different spread teams, so you have to tweak what you do according to what the other team majors in. So it's interesting stuff. You try to learn from every bit of film that you can. You try to take stuff from what other people do and apply it to the principles you have.
Matchup-wise, though, is this the best? It's the best matchup you've had against Oregon in recent years.
Well, we are a better defensive team, right? I mean, throughout the year, we've played a lot better defense than we have in the last couple of years. Now, that certainly doesn't guarantee anything against the Ducks, because they're so explosive, and boom, all of a sudden they got 50 points. It's like one of those deals. But we are a much better defense than we've been the past couple of years, and I think that's a common denominator for Stanford, right? They have a very, very good defense, one of the best statistically and playing-wise in the country. And so they played Oregon right into the fourth quarter, and then boom, found a way to win it at the end. And that was their recipe. So we'll see if we can find ours.
Is there something too, almost like a baseball analogy, seeing a pitcher multiple times? And Stanford had a lot of guys that have played against this team for a couple years, and with you guys now, even though it's still a young team, you've had guys that have played in this, that have seen this offense, that have seen Arizona, that maybe isn't quite as new as it was a handful of years ago.
Well, I think that's true. There's no doubt about it that it's better to have seen it and learned from it than to be experiencing that kind of tempo and that kind of speed firsthand for the first time. So hopefully, we always talk to our team about taking the experiences you have, stacking them up, and you should get better from those experiences. So, hopefully all the things that we've done over the last couple of years, both in playing Oregon and playing the other teams that we have this year, help us play our best game, which we're going to need to beat Oregon.
Can your guys do what Stanford did defensively with your personnel, or do you have to go about it a different way?
We'll have to go about it a different way because Stanford's base defense is a 3-4, and we've played a little bit of 3-4, but mostly in passing situations. So we'll be able to sprinkle that in from time to time. But our base front is a 4-man front, so we'll take some things that they did and look at them and see how they apply. Like I said, apply some things that they did to the principles that you have, so it doesn't become a whole new deal for our players that have to learn a whole bunch of new stuff to play against one of the best teams in the country.
We're chatting here with Oregon State coach Mike Riley, nice enough to join us a couple days early this week due to the holiday. So is it fair to say that maybe your quarterback, with Sean Mannion back, and he rebounded last week against Cal, is it fair to say that maybe his performance at Washington might have been the knee?
Oh, let's say it was.
Okay. Yeah.
That gives me more confidence.
Yeah.
He looked good against Cal.
Let's say it was. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but let's just pretend that it was, and we'll go on from there.
Well, I mean, it's never this simple, but you look at the two losses this year, and I don't think either one of those teams were better than you guys, and it came down to turnovers.
Yes, if you absolutely.
Even if you just have one or two turnovers in those games, you're undefeated right now.
Well, that is the major difference in our record this year, right? We were one of the worst to turnover ratio a year ago, and now I think we're close to the top of the league. I think we might be second to Oregon. So, that's a big statistic. If you want to take one statistic and apply it to wins and losses, that might be one of the most important ones. So, and that's what I said to our team the day after the Washington game. The turnover deal was the killer, and then the Stanford game was two major plays to me. One of them was we didn't cover the back when we blitzed, and we had the quarterback sacked, but he got out of it and threw a little pitch pass over to a great runner in an open field, and that was one score. And then the other score came off of our fumble. So, we were our own worst enemy on those two plays. Otherwise, we got a great chance to beat Stanford in Stanford Stadium.
With such a history in this game, do one or two past Civil Wars come to the forefront of your mind when I ask you about this game?
Well, I remember games as kids, and it's funny because I remember the ones in Eugene because I think my first one was in Hayward Field when I went down there when my dad was coaching and watched. And then I was in Autzen Stadium when it was brand new for a Civil War game. And then the other, game I'll never forget is the 98 game where I think it was a real turning point for Oregon State football that night.
When you look at matchups, the one that I would say to me that jumps off the paper that most favors you is the matchup on the outside, your receivers against their defensive backs, and maybe this does just come back to quarterback play. It would just seem to me in this that you guys can't play as conservatively as Stanford did, that if you're going to beat Oregon, Cooks and Wheaton have to have big games. Sean has to be able to throw the ball downfield and beat Oregon behind their secondary.
Well, I think that's a big key. As I've looked at our team's identity form through the year, that's been a big key for us all year, Suk, and I think it's well said. I think it's very important. I think that the big part of that, because of guys like Dion Jordan and the rush that they get, is we have to protect Sean. If we can give him time to throw, then we got our opportunity to try to do what you just said. But, we did a poor job of protecting last year against Oregon. They do a great job on defense with a variety of things, and they come like crazy, and they have some individuals that are difficult to handle one-on-one, and so we've got to be very, very good up front so that we can attempt to do what you just described.
Yeah, it's a fun matchup because as aggressive as they get, and they do get creative, if you pick it up, there's plays to be made. Anytime you get an aggressive defense and you get by that first wave, there's a lot of yards and a lot of points to be had if you can pick it up.
Well, I think that's one of the key issues in this game, and we have the mentality. This is how we try to teach the quarterbacks that when we get the one-on-ones, we've got to give our receivers the ball because we have to win one-on-one, and so he's got to find the right one-on-one, and we've got to protect him, and then he's got to put the ball in the right place, and then we got a shot.
Well, interesting stuff. We thank you for bumping up your schedule this week for us. Have a great Thanksgiving, and good luck on Saturday, Coach.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Thanks.
Coach Mike Riley. That 98 game was the double overtime game, 44-41. Oregon State pulled it out. The Ken Simonton touchdown game. And that was, by many accounts, the turning point in the Oregon State football program.
I think this is a chance to be a really, really good ball game. I still think Oregon's the better team, and obviously they're going to be heavy favorites. I think it's right around, 12, 13 points?
Yeah, it's down to 10.
It's down to 10?
Yeah.
Well, that's
it's been bet down.
Moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and the difference, too, is the Ducks have won 4 straight in this series.
Yeah.
And that's actually similar to the 1998 game when Oregon had won 4 straight.
Maybe something's a brewing.
Going in.